Hi, and welcome to our class on the new features in Freezerworks Unlimited 4.0. I'm Rick Michaels, and I'm going to take you through Freezerworks Unlimited. Our new version will be released at the end of October 2008, and we'll go through some of the new features so you'll get an idea of what you have to look forward to as you upgrade to Freezerworks Unlimited 4.0. Now, for a bullet list of the features that will be in this upgrade, you can go to our website, and we have our Freezerworks News. You will see a version of this. You'll see a link with a list of improvements and things that have been added, bulleted list as you scroll down on this page. So, for refreshing, go ahead and take a look at that. Let's start with the menu structure, and some of the things that we've tried to do. We'll start with user interface improvements. We've tried to create a more user-friendly program so that you can navigate and do the things you need to do, hopefully a little quicker and easier. And we begin with reorganizing the main menu. You'll see we have a couple of new menu options here: sample management and sample inventory. Sample management are all the options for managing the samples that you're putting in the Freezerworks, adding them, updating them, importing samples, quality control and such, moving them and things. As you're viewing samples and finding samples and such, you'll find a view inventory. The view options will be listed here. Reports. Some of the reports have been pulled out of the old menus and they're placed here in the reports menu, including exporting data and configuring user-defined reports for location reports and such. System admin, the main menu here looks pretty much the same, except you'll see that the freezers, where you configure your freezers, is listed here at system admin as well. Shipping, no changes. Labels, except for a couple of new options, pretty much the same. Over here at File, we have a new option here I wanted to point out, and that is something called Recent Activity. And this is going to be very useful if you've got users that basically do go into 2 or 3 different features regularly in Freezerworks, and if all these options look a little daunting to them, they can go to Recent Activity and go to the options that they go to regularly, just clicking those options and such. So hopefully that'll help people remember where they've been and where they normally go, and they can focus on the tasks that each user has by going to Recent Activity. Let's go ahead and look at list views, and the list views have a different look. And for example, here I've got a list view of all the samples in my data file. And you'll see that this will look quite a bit different. We have a lot of more colorful buttons here, and new options as well. You'll see here that samples can be selected by clicking on them, as well as hitting shift click or control click and such. Those options are still available, but if you want, you can also select the samples that you want to do work on by clicking this box. Select all or deselect all as well. And so, for example, if I want to make a subset, I could click the ones that I want to subset, and hit subset, and then there they are. So back to this screen. The other thing you can do is there is now an export directly from this screen. So these fields can be automatically placed in an export file that can be read in, just for example, Excel. Let's do that right now. I hit export, and let's call this test 6 export. Save it, and then when I go into Excel, and I may find that program, that data file that I just created. There it is. I can then open up Excel, find it, make sure the delimiter is right, hit finish, and then I can view and do work in Excel, create an Excel file of that program, of those fields, records. That can be done right here from the view screen. The other thing is, if I want to quickly print a report of what I see right here, I can go to print list, and print list will give me a printout of exactly what I'm looking at. So I can create quick and easy reports right here from my view screens of whatever samples or aliquots that I'm viewing at that time. Here's something that will make data entry an easier task for many of you. That is the ability to edit these fields right here from the view screen. So you don't have to go into every single record to make a data entry, but you can actually change fields, edit fields right here from this view screen, with all of the error checking features here as well. So for example, whenever I enter 070, I have set up my user-defined field to make my gender male, and so forth. Or if I enter the wrong one, I'll get an error message. It's invalid. So we also give you the ability to not only delete samples from these sample list views, but now you can also make a deletion from aliquot list views as well. Now as I make editing changes, I want to move this out of the screen, and now this is where the save button comes in here. Now you can, now if you are making edit changes here, you can have the option here to save those changes or not to save, and so I would check save to save. So to show you the aliquot list view, if I select an aliquot option to search by, let me search aliquot type equal, for example, to serum, and I get now a list of aliquots. And for example, I can check freezer positions. I can see for all these aliquots that are equal to serum where the freezer locations are. And I can now then select aliquots here and delete the aliquots from this screen as well, instead of going into each sample record and deleting aliquots that way. We're going to come back to these searching options, but before we do, let's go ahead and go back to our sample selection here, and I want to show you the new view option here. And I've got these 9 samples selected, and perhaps I want to do some work within this selection, maybe create a subset, but at the same time I don't want to lose my original selection if I want to come back to it for some other reason. What I can do then is select New View, and this will create for me another view, a duplicate of the view I originally had. So if I want to perhaps do some work in here, let's say that I want to select all the samples that are protocol 070 and make this a separate view, a separate selection to do some work with. I can then, let's replace the sort for protocol, and I'll select all of my 070s by selecting the first one, shift click, they're all selected, and then use subset, and now I've got another selection here of my 070s. I do some work in here, perhaps update or print a report or something, but I want to go back to my original. I can click here, and then my original view is in the forefront, and then this is the view that work is done on. So if you're printing a report, updating samples, doing some kind of process in a list view, it's the one that's in the forefront, in focus, that will be the one that the work is done on. Since we've gone into view inventory and searching, let me show you some of the new features in searching. We'll start here with simple search, and you may remember in earlier versions you have the ability to search by samples, aliquots, or transactions as 3 separate option features. we've combined those three into one simple search. So when you select simple search, then you select the table you want to search by. So as we did earlier, I have my aliquots equal to serum. And this option is new. You can now select a list view to go directly into. And as you might remember, I changed my list view last time I searched to freezer positions. So it remembered that and placed my last list view of aliquots in here. So when I hit OK, it now goes to the list view format that I call freezer positions. So if I change that to, say, for example, back to system default and close out and go back in again, now system default is remembered and is placed here as well. This will be very handy if you are doing searches where you may be pulling up 100,000 records or aliquots at one time. Freezerworks will find those records really quickly, but displaying many user-defined fields of, say, 100,000 records might take a couple minutes. And so if that's kind of slowing you down, you may create list views that have 2 or 3 fields, so they'll be located and displayed very quickly, and you can make that your default and go into that quickly rather than waiting. So that might be handy for those very large searches. We also have made some improvements to our advanced search. And as you go into advanced search, you'll see that the screen looks different now. We give you the ability for each user to select each user's own searches from available searches. So you no longer have to go scrolling through a large number of searches to find the search you want. You can put the searches that you normally use as a user up here. You can remove them or add them, and it's just a matter of selecting the searches that are available to you and adding them to your searches up above. Let's go into the search screen. You'll see it's been redesigned, again, trying to make it a little more easier to understand and use. So you just follow the searches that you create using our search window boxes here. And let me show you a new feature here, which is the ability to do searches by comparing one field with another field. And these would normally be numeric fields. So for example, in this one, I have a search option called aliquots removed. And what this is the search goes through all the samples and finds all of the samples that have a number of aliquots with positions less than the number of aliquots total. And so this will show me all the samples that have had aliquots removed from them. So I can now compare that like that. So let me show you. Let's recreate this by creating a new search, and I'll add new, and to show you how that is done, I would give it a name like I did before, go to samples, and I have a number of aliquots with positions, and I want all of the records again where the number of aliquots with positions is less than, and as I enter, this sentence is expressed. And now I can either put, for example, I might say I want all the ones where the number of positions is less than 5. I can enter a value here, or I come down here and enter comparison with another field. In this case, number of aliquots total. And that's how that's done. The other option that we're excited to offer you now is the ability to schedule options. And this is something that you can have schedule a search on a regular basis pop up either at a certain time of day for the user or at login or log out. So this is good for alerts. Let me show you some examples by let's look at this search called reorder controls. And in this example, we have a user-defined field called reagent, which is a yes or no, is the sample, a reagent. So this user may be storing samples, patient samples, and also some reagents. He's using Freezerworks for both situations. So if a sample a record is created and it's a reagent, this person wants to know, I have a warning to know whenever reagents are the number of aliquots available is less than or equal to 5. And when that is the case, display those records. So there will be a message when they log in. If there are records found, it'll say time to reorder controls, and you can see which of the controls need to be reordered. This will be displayed during login. So you can have, anytime you need some kind of an alert, you can create searches and have that displayed on a regular basis. It can be on a scheduled time, daily or weekly, maybe the first Sunday of every month or something, or every Monday at a certain time and so forth, or just every time you log in. And if you have searches, it'll pop up as you want it to. You can also look at the results of scheduled searches and save those searches. So you can save that search, and there'll be a list of searches here, and then you can go in there and it'll have the records, and you can go and do the work you need to do with those samples that need to be refreshed. Another new feature I'd like to point out for some users, this may be something you'll be happy to hear about. That is our select by scan field option. Now will hold the sort as you scan them in. So if, for example, I have a rack of tubes and they all have barcodes, I want to scan that barcode and then place them into positions in a box that I'm going to then put in the freezer. I can now scan those, and it'll hold that sort and then put them in the box location. Let me give you an example. Say I've got a number of unique aliquot ID numbers, which is my scan field, and it's an aliquot field, and I'm going to then scan these aliquots, put them in the positions A1, A2, A3, so forth, in the order that I scan them. I would then start scanning here, and I believe I've got some values in here. And so forth. So I'd scan all those values, and they would show up like this. And you can see they're in the order that I scanned them. And then I would do a search. You can see these, and normally when you do the search in the current version, these would get sorted in order. Now when I do the search, the order that I scan them in remains. And this way works really well, because then if these are, after I scan them, I can then go to sample management and update the aliquots, and I can select a freezer location, and what I want to do is I want to select, I can select a new freezer location by assigning positions to these existing aliquots. So these aliquots have been scanned. Now I want to put them in a box. I would then select the box, assign a new position for these. Let's go ahead and select whatever box I have. Say I want to put them in box 7 and beginning at the beginning of box 7A1. And then I would hit update, and then these 3 aliquots would go into this box in this order. So I save my order. So if that's been something you've been waiting for, it's now available. Let's now take a look at user-defined fields, and we've added some great new features here as well. Go down some of the list here, and first is the ability to both import and export user-defined fields. So, for example, if I am creating user-defined fields and entry screens and list views and such in a separate computer, separate from the production computer that I'm actually using that's going live, I can do those creations on that test unit and then export or export these out into an XML format, give it a name and such, and then I can import those into the other database that's going live by then selecting that and importing it. So that's going to be very useful if you're creating your data file database on a different computer and you don't want to go back into the live computer and recreate what you did. You can import and export. This is an option both in user-defined fields. It's also an option when you create entry screens. You can now import and export entry screens as well as list views. So it gives the system administrator much more flexibility in creating the screens and the views and such and the user-defined fields that you need. Let's go to a user-defined field and show you some of the new things that we've added to calculated fields. And here I've got a user-defined field called current age. And let me just show you here at calculated fields. It is a calculated field that calculates the age of the patient, of the sample in question. And some of the new things that we've added to calculated fields is the ability to add a current system date is now one of the things that you can use for your building blocks. So I have a current system date, today's date minus the date of birth, divided by 365 will give me the age of the patient in question, the current age. I can also, a new feature is to be able to put parentheses around field groupings so that this is one unit here. And then I can divide the whole thing by 365, so that's a new feature as well. Significant digits will give me an age that only has one character after the decimal point. So if I'm creating ages, I don't have 10 digits after the age 12.12375, whatever. It will stop at the first digit. So it's not showing up here, but when I go into the field, it'll cut off at 0.0 in this situation. So that is some options in calculated fields. Another thing that we've added is the ability to use the login name to import it as a default entry. So, for example, let me show you. I have a user-defined field called technician, and I can default technician. I have default values here. I can default so that when I enter a screen, if the technician user-defined field is on that screen, then I can make the default the login name. So if I go into a field with technician, the login admin, who I'm currently logged in, will show up on the screen. Another useful feature in default values here is the ability to create default entries based on the values. So for example, I have a field here called qualitative result, and this is a field that will be one of these three options based on an entry in a different field. So let's go to default values and I'll show you how that works. I have this default entry for qualitative result is based on the value of another field called test result. So we'll have it set this up so that if the test result is less than or equal to 10, it's a negative value. Negative is what's inputted. If it's between 11 and 20, indeterminate. If it's greater than or equal to 21, then make the qualitative result positive. And another thing we were adding as well is the ability to create little tooltips. So for example, I have a field over here called number available, and we'll go into this field to show some more features about it as well. I want to show you right now the tooltip. what is number available. So I can put a tip here that when I hover over this field with my cursor, an explanation of what this field means can be entered right here. So you just type in your entry here, just type it in, and then that is a tooltip that displays. And let me show you how that works. Let's go ahead and go out and let's look at a field that has that on it. So if this was a reagent and number available, as I hover over this, you can see here that the tooltip will display what this means. So you can create tooltips for all of your fields. Let's go back into number available and show you some other features that we have with that. A new user-defined field is now a count field. This gives you the ability to count the aliquots in a sample record and create a field, in a sample field, that will be the number that you've counted. Let me show you how that works here. In this situation, number available is all the aliquots for a sample where the current amount is greater than or equal to 0.5. So we saw in the previous record there were 0 aliquots that had more than half a mil of stuff in it. So that number was 0. So this is the ability to quickly look at this gives you the ability to quickly look at the top of the screen and see, for example, okay, maybe I want to know how many aliquots that I have, or plasma. And I've got a count field here where aliquot is equal to plasma, and it would count them up and as a count field and put the number in there. So if I'm looking at a sample record and there were 7 plasma aliquot types, then 7 would be the number, and so forth. Also, you may have noticed that number available was in red. We allow you now also in formatting. We've added more formatting features. You can now give visual clues to your data and warn you if a value is of a certain value. So for example, I want in number available, I want it to be in red if the number available is less than or equal to 5. That would alert me that I'm low and gives me a red. Maybe I'll have yellow if the value is greater than 5 but less than 10, and maybe I'll have, for example, green if it's greater than 10. So formatting, color formatting, to give you more visual clues as you're looking at records. Let's now look at our groups option, and we've also, for you system administrators, tried here to give you an easier way of managing your groups. If you have multiple groups using Freezerworks Unlimited, you can now come in here and create groups, and from one screen decide who's in the group, what freezers they have access to, what screens they have access to, and such. And let me show you how that works real quickly. I'm going to add a new group here. I'll call it the chemistry group. And from this one screen, I can assign members to this group. I can assign entry screens to this group, batch entry screens, list views. I can set the access levels for the freezers, and so forth, all from one screen. So whereas with the current version you kind of have to hop around to assign users to entry screens or list views, you got to kind of hop over to those options. Now you can do all those and manage all those from this one group screen, make it a whole lot easier for you. Okay, let's now go to an entry screen, and we have created a lot more flexibility in the manipulation working with aliquots, and let me show you what we've done here. And let's go ahead and change my list format to default input, or my entry format, and select a sample here and show you what you can do here. And here is an example of a patient record and some different screens and such. And we want to focus on the aliquot screens down here. And what we've done here is, in this situation, we've created a patient record. We have a number of aliquots for this person. A number of them have been assigned to a freezer, but 8 of these aliquots have not been assigned to a freezer yet. So this is something you can do in Freezerworks. You can assign aliquots to freezers or to samples, but not know quite yet where in the freezer you're going to put it. And you can assign those later. Now to assign aliquots positions, already created aliquots positions, you kind of got to go out and do it in batch update and such. But now you can do this in groups from this screen by just selecting the aliquots, highlighting them, and then going to assign positions. So you can do that now from within this screen of already existing aliquots. So these 4 aliquots, I want to now assign a position to them. I can take the freezer and either use the next assignable position or move forward or backward, wherever I want to assign them. I've stopped at F3 here, so I'll go to assign at F4, going forward, assign the positions, F4, 5, 6, 7, and now I've got 4 aliquots here with new positions. Then perhaps I want to take these other 4 and maybe put them in a different freezer, and I can do that as well. Another thing you can do, and let's take a look at this sample, and if you are using the sub-aliquot option, if you're sub-aliquoting, creating aliquots from aliquots, we've given you some visual tools to help you do that. And at this sample we do have some sub-aliquots. We have 2 aliquots that were created, this one and this one, created from this aliquot up here. Parent aliquot is 100079, this one here, and these were created from here. So that's very useful to see, but sometimes that family tree is just hard to follow without a visual representation of that tree. And now you can see, to go to lineage, you can see which aliquots belong to which. Makes it much easier to track it. So if I was going to, for example, make a sub-aliquot of this sample, let's go ahead and do that. And I'd put the information down here, maybe it's DNA and so forth. Assign. Create that new aliquot. I now have a new aliquot, and that's the parent. Here it is, the parent of this one. The lineage, now I can track that lineage, parent to child to grandchild. So this will make it much easier for you to visually view and see your the relationship between your aliquots as you sub-aliquot. And finally, let me show you another feature we've added, and that is before, in order to update user-defined fields from here, you'd have to double-click and go in and change each one at a time. Can get tedious if you got to make a change of all of these, for example. Now you can do it quickly from one screen by selecting Modify List, and then what this does is it takes your aliquots and puts them into a modifiable spreadsheet like we saw earlier. So if I needed to update this, I could go ahead and make the updates right here from the screen, and so forth. And then save the list, and the options, then the new field entries get updated here on the screen. You'll also see that we've made a change here in the option buttons, and you have a save button to save everything you've done but stay in this screen, or you can save and close, or if you don't want to save what you did, just hit close and exit out without saving. So as I've saved it already, I can also save and close, or just close. Let's now take a look at labels, and we've added a couple of new options to our labels menu just to help you understand what labels we have and what we offer, and give you some more flexibility. And these two, here's our first one, is label specifications, and here you'll see a listing of all of the labels that we offer with Freezerworks, to print these directly from Freezerworks. And to look at one, and to get some information on it, just double click on it. You'll get the name, the order number, manufacturer, and so forth, the ribbon that we've validated it to work with, dimensions of the label, and even over here a picture of it with a ruler to give you a good idea whether this is the label that you definitely want, and so forth. So that hopefully will be very useful. Also, when you configure labels, you can now, if you've got, for example, a 1 mil wraparound portrait we have here, you can now assign different layouts and the fields that you select for that label based on a UDF. So for example, when I go to print 1 mil wraparound portraits, in this situation I say give me this label if the protocol is 070, and if I want to create a new label of this type and associated with another protocol, maybe 253, then I would put that here as well. And then what I can do is when I go to print labels, if it's protocol 070, this is the design, this is the label you get. If the protocol is 253, then I may have different fields here. So more flexibility again in printing batches of labels. And also we have adjust printer settings for your labels. If you're finding with a certain label that that the default settings that we worked at DataWorks of the speed and the density, which gives you speed and heat density, gives you either a lighter or darker print. If you need to make it a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, you can change. You now have the ability to change these settings. Or if the location of a field on your label isn't quite right, you can adjust the adjustment vertically or horizontally by 1 point at a time here as well. So a little more power that you have to get the label to print right for you. And these will be, of course, defaulted according to our own in-house testing. So you can change the speeds and such and test it. If that looks good, keep it like that. If you need to revert back to what you had before, then you just hit the revert. And that is what we've added to label printing. We've also added a new printer to label printing. That is the Zebra Z4M, which is basically the Brady MPP 300. So we've included that as well. Let's now take a look at some of the new things that we've done in import. In import, we've made it more user-friendly so that when you're doing an import, you let the program know what it is you're attempting to accomplish with your import, and then the program will help walk you through the steps that you need to do to accomplish that task. If I am simply adding samples, then I would check Add Samples. If I'm adding sample records with aliquots, then I would check Add Samples with aliquots. So I'm adding new samples with new aliquots to my database. And when I check that, the automatic options for assigning and creating aliquots become in focus at that point. Or perhaps I am using import to modify existing samples, and if I am doing it importing for that purpose, then I would check Modify, and then I check what it is that I am modifying. Just sample records? Just aliquot records? Am I modifying samples with aliquots? In other words, sample data is being modified and aliquot data that's associated with that sample being modified? Or perhaps I'm just I'm modifying existing sample records by adding aliquots to them. If I'm adding aliquots to samples, then the automatic aliquot options become in focus as well. And then we have the setup screen where you give the information as to whether you have a header file, what's your delimiters, your formats, and such. The field tab is where you, as it is right now, you select the fields that you are going to import for both samples or aliquots. If you're not importing aliquot data, aliquots, then the aliquot box will not display. And you can also assign those import formats that you save and create and use repeatedly to groups. Let's go ahead and do an import using a format that I've already created called test4. And let's go to the fields, and these are the fields that I am importing in this import. And I want to show you here that before the import takes place, if there are any errors encountered, you'll have an opportunity to look at the report and see what those errors are and determine whether you want to continue and accept the import or cancel out. So let's go ahead and select the test 4. And as you can see here, errors were found during this data validation step. Let me print the report and determine if I want to continue and accept the report or the import or cancel it completely. So I take a look at the report, and I can see here that I was attempting to add new samples, and 3 of my sample records have a duplicate in a unique ID field, the internal barcode. So these were not imported. These will not be imported, but I have the opportunity here, after looking at this report, to decide whether I want to go ahead and continue the import and import the rest of the records, and then perhaps go back and manually fix or adjust those that didn't import. I can either import or I can cancel, fix my format or fix my file, and do it again. Another new feature is the ability to view your import reports as they are created. So I can go back and I can, if I've done an import and I have a report of errors like we saw here, I can see here that what the errors were, and I can go back and have a historical record of imports and what errors were found. Let's finally look at batch entry and the things that we've added to our batch entry option, and this is the formats that you can create to create sample records with aliquot records quickly using a batch entry format. We now allow you to use as many user-defined fields as you need for your sample fields. You can add as many as you need here. In the aliquot fields, you can add up to 40 aliquot user-defined fields. Here in this template, I'm going to create a number of samples using a import file of patient ID. So this is a new option as well. You can now import your ID numbers. If I, for example, have a list of patient IDs in an Excel file or an ASCII file, I can now import that, and for every patient ID record in my file, I can set up my default values for the sample records and assign as many aliquots as I need to as many freezers as I need, and use aliquot types. So here I've got 2 aliquots I'm storing of DNA for every sample I import or that I create here, 3 serum aliquots, and 3 plasma aliquots. So you have up to 40 here. User-defined fields for aliquots and unlimited user-defined fields for sample records, and the ability to import your key fields, as well as the scanning your key field and auto-generating number, which is in the current version. Finally, we have all of our manuals besides the user's manual. Our administration guide and configuration guide and so forth will be linked to the manuals menu. These are PDF files, so you can always search for any key term using the PDF search option, and it'll list all the pages that have the term that you are searching for, as well as hyperlinked and table of contents that are hyperlinked and bookmarked as well. Web links will give you a link directly to our website to get information you need on FAQs, to request support, to give feedback, to view videos like this one on options, and to get information on our products for ordering information and such. And that's a quick look at Freezerworks Unlimited 4.0 and our new features. If you have any questions, of course, please feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we'll be happy to answer them. But thank you for your time, and look forward to talking to you later. Bye-bye.